New York's about as bad as California's. To discuss Rick Perry's Texas past and already visible penchant for hard-edge campaigning, we're joined by a reporter who's covered Perry closely. Bob Moser is executive editor of the American Prospect. He's the former editor at the Texas Observer, where he spent the last 3 years covering Rick Perry. He's the author of Blue Dixie, Awakening the South's Democratic Majority. Bob Moser, welcome to Democracy Now! It's good to have you with us. Tell us who Rick Perry is.
Well, Rick Perry is, above all, a politician, a career politician, as Republicans like to say. He has never lost an election in that career. And I think one of the things that people don't understand about him, because he's been in the national spotlight primarily for his extreme Tea Party rhetoric and more recently for his Christian right associations and his response event in Houston. But I think what people don't understand is that Rick Perry primarily is a corporatist. He has basically instituted Grover Norquist's model of governance and government shrinking more completely than any governor in America, and thus has become a model for people like Scott Walker and John Kasich and Rick Scott. I think that, above all, Rick Perry will say what he has to say to win a campaign. But when he's governing, he governs for the rich, and that is the entire sum of his real ideology.
Let's go back to how he came to be in political office. His first elected office, he won against Jim Hightower?
That was his first statewide elected office, yes. He had been in the state legislature before that and actually started out as a Democrat, as a conservative Democrat. Was Al Gore's state chairman in 1988 and made the switch before the 1990 election and unseated Jim Hightower as agriculture commissioner.
And then succeeding...
And then 8 years later, he became lieutenant governor. 8 years later, he became lieutenant governor, and then when George W. Bush went to Washington, became governor in early 2001. And is now the longest-serving governor in Texas history. I
wanted to go back to Molly Ivins, the nationally syndicated columnist, former editor at the Texas Observer, where you were recently also an editor, who followed Rick Perry very closely. She dubbed him Governor Goodhair. During the 2002 Texas gubernatorial race between Perry and the Democratic challenger Tony Sanchez, Ivins commented on Perry's smear campaign against his opponent and his use of the word coincidental. She wrote, quote, "This, in turn, brings up the interesting role of coincidence in the life of Governor Goodhair. Last summer, the Gov appointed an Enron executive to the state's Public Utilities Commission, and the next day, Perry got a check for $25,000 from Ken Lay. He explained this to everyone's satisfaction as being totally coincidental." Bob Moser.
Well, this is of a pattern with Rick Perry's governance. He has. He has become a major campaign cash machine, and partly as the head of the Republican Governors Association. And, I think that is the way that he has governed. He has appointed he's made every appointment in Texas, and just about every appointee has given him money. That is the way that he runs things, and that's what we can expect.
You mentioned the Republican Governors Association.
If Rick Perry becomes president.
One of the famous contributors to the Republican Governors Association are the Koch brothers, who gave something like $1 million most recently. Talk about who the big financial backers of Perry are.
Well, two of the biggest. One is Bob Perry, who is the single largest individual donor to right-wing causes around the country, and has given Rick Perry about $20 million. Bob Perry is a huge home builder in Texas, and his primary interest has been in gutting regulations on businesses and environmental regulations, two things that Perry has been very happy to oblige with. And one of the others is Harold Simmons, a super rich guy who is known as the king of Superfund sites in America. He's out of Dallas, and recently recently managed to open a huge radioactive waste disposal site in West Texas, and not only skirted what little state regulation there was in doing so, but also managed to get the county in which the site will be sited to pay for most of it. And Harold Simmons is known as one of the real evil geniuses of American capitalism. These are the kinds of people who have supported Rick Perry and the kinds of people who he has worked for in office almost exclusively.
I want to play the response from Karl Rove, former chief strategist for President George W. Bush, to Perry's comments about the Federal Reserve being treasonous. Rove was interviewed on Fox News.
It's his first time on the national stage, and it was a very unfortunate comment. You don't accuse the chairman of the Federal Reserve of being a traitor to his country, of being guilty of treason, and suggesting that we treat him pretty ugly in Texas. You know, that's not, again, a presidential statement.
That was Karl Rove on Fox. Bob Moser, this is interesting for this comment, but also talk about Rove's relationship with Governor Perry as he talks about, well, encouraging other people right now to get into the race.
Well, they have a long history, and Karl Rove was a supporter of Rick Perry's when he ran for lieutenant governor, and when people knew that there was a good chance that he would become governor after that. But they had a split when Karl Rove supported Kay Bailey Hutchison, installed her in the U.S. Senate rather than Rick Perry, which Perry wanted. And there's also a stylistic difference. I think that it's not only Karl Rove, but the Bushes who have not been happy with Perry. And, you know, Perry's politics have been rather similar in many ways in substance, but in style, very, very different. Where George W. Bush, as governor of Texas, was fairly moderate and actually fairly bipartisan, as hard as it is to believe. Rick Perry has been a hardcore partisan and an ideologue. And, you know, these comments about Bernanke and the comments that he's made about President Obama as well are characteristic of Perry. He has a very overblown rhetorical style. And it's something that's gonna harm him in this race, I think. He has not faced critical press. He's not faced critical audiences. He's steered clear of those very, very assiduously as governor and in his 3 races for governor.
Governor Perry joined Glenn Beck on his Fox News show when he had one in June. During the interview, Perry claimed that, quote, since June 2009, about 48% of all the jobs created in America were in Texas. Let's turn to a clip of that interview.
How many jobs do you create, percentage, during the recession?
June 2009, about 48% of all the jobs created in America were in Texas.
Thank you, sir.
Come add to it.
Thank you. Would love to.
That's Glenn Beck with Perry. Well, Governor Perry's staff attributed the number to the Dallas branch of the Federal Reserve. The fact-checking group PolitiFact questioned its legitimacy, saying different time frames revealed Texas created a more modest percentage of national jobs. Bob Moser, talk about the so-called Texas miracle.
Well, the Texas miracle is something that Rick Perry has been campaigning on for quite a while. He has spent most of the last few years talking to Chamber of Commerce groups and Republican groups around the country and preaching about Texas job creation. He did inflate the numbers, but there's no question that Texas has created more jobs in the last couple of years than any other state. What lies beneath those numbers, however, is the fact that Texas has also created many, many more minimum wage jobs and low wage jobs than any other state. The kinds of industry that Texas has attracted are companies that are coming to Texas because of low and almost non-existent regulation and because of a huge population of people looking for work and willing to work for low wages. And, you know, that's the truth that lies beneath this miracle. The other thing about it is that, you know, Rick Perry has stripped away successfully just about every strand of the social safety net in his 10 years as governor. And Texas education has been stripped to the bone. High school graduation rates are the lowest in the country. The rate of insurance is the lowest in the country. And, you know, it's a miracle for companies who want to exploit their workers. It's not a miracle for anybody else.
So how popular is Governor Perry in Texas?
He has never been wildly popular, certainly not as popular as George W. Bush was. And I think part of that has to do with his style, that he has always been very confrontational. And part of it is the fact that people in Texas know that as governor, Rick Perry has almost no record of legislative achievements and policy achievements. He's done nothing really of substance as governor except strip state government, reduce the size of state government, and make life much more difficult for everyone who is not wealthy or corporate.
I wanted to go back, Bob Moser, to Tax Day 2009, when Governor Perry talked about the possibility of Texas seceding from the United States. He made the comment to reporters after a Tea Party rally in Austin.
There's a lot of different scenarios. Texas is a unique place. When we came in the Union in 1845, one of the issues was that we would be able to leave if we decided to do that. You know, my hope is that America, and Washington in particular, pays attention. We got a great union. There's absolutely no reason to dissolve it. But if Washington continues to thumb their nose at the American people, you know, who knows what might come out of that. So, Texas is a very unique place, and we're pretty independent a lot of it.
Your take on that, Bob Moser, seceding from the United States?
Well, I actually was at the first Tea Party rally that day prior to him making those comments, and he actually led a chant of states' rights, states' rights, states' rights. What Rick Perry was doing at that point was setting himself up for a very difficult re-election campaign against Kay Bailey Hutchison, who was the most popular politician in Texas and a mainline conservative. And his rhetoric went to the extreme. Now, you know, this is one tendency that Perry has. He does tend to shoot off at the mouth, and that's what he was doing there. But make no mistake, he is serious about states' rights. If you read his book, Fed Up, which was published last year, he is actually a states' rights purist, to the point that even some conservatives will not like it. He says, for instance, that marijuana legalization in California is just fine on the principle of states' rights. That gay marriage in other states is just fine on the principle of states' rights. But, of course, what states' rights amounts to for Rick Perry and for many conservatives is reducing the size and the scope of the federal government down to the size of something you can drown in a bathtub, as Grover Norquist has said.